that last question, and I know that you know a lot of people around the world. So, who do you think I should ask next?
There are two people top of my list every single time, and one is Rocio Briceno, and the other.
I think this is the first one, if I'm correct.
Rocio Briceno, yeah. Latinas, you have like not only women but also people from South America. You got Agustin Villena, who's kind of the grand old man of agile in Latin America. The Rocio is interesting, and you need to talk to her because she initiated a thing that another manifesto on agile for social impact projects. It's called See Agile, Social Impact Agile. And she corralled me, and I helped, and there were 5 of us. And we wrote kind of a manifesto. So all of her focus is on applying agile in a non-product context. If you're in a village in Patagonia or Africa, or you're changing governments or government policies or roads, right? What can you do, especially in her context in Latin America? So that's really unique. And so she's agile top to bottom. You definitely have to talk to her. Bilingual, but they're both bilingual, so that won't be a problem.
I just received the invite by Alistair Cockburn. He's a really close friend to me. I mean, he's pretty much part of my family, my extended family. So I said, okay, just because of that.
Wow. Well, yeah. Alistair has that effect on people.
Yeah.
When he says it, and so it's I'm really glad that both that he invited you and that you wanted to join. So that's nice.
Hi. Today I talked with Rocio. We talked about being a candidate for vice presidency of her country, not just a company, her country. Writing a book with her mother and her sister, and how different generations connect differently.
I'm Yves Hanoul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button, because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello everybody. With me I forgot to ask your name. I think it's Rocio. Is that the way I had to pronounce it? Rocio?
Rocio.
Rocio. Of course, I should have known. Rocio. Sorry for that.
It's okay.
It's a mistake I keep making. I should ask it to the people before it in the interview, but we had some glitches starting up, and because of that, I didn't even think about it. Anyway, we jumped right into it, and what I wanted to show everyone is where we are, and I'm in Belgium as usual, recording. And Rocio, you have 2 locations. So what I understand is that you started off, and a lot of time you spent also in San Jose, but actually right now you are in Washington. Is that correct?
Yes, I am Costa Rican, but since life happens, I moved to Washington D.C. 4 years ago. So technically, I have two houses right now. I mean, because because I have to, because I have some work and my family is in Costa Rica, but I also have family and work here in Washington D.C. and let's say in the USA, because since COVID, everything changed. So I have some work around here right now, actually in Washington D.C., Virginia, some stuff even in Chicago. And I also have in Costa Rica the things that I do based over there, but mostly from Latin America. So let's say every 3 months I am traveling.
Wow, it's already a very nice introduction. But before we go into a little more about who you are, what's the time zone that you're in? And here in Belgium, it's almost, well, it's just a few minutes after 8 o'clock on a Friday evening. What time is it on your side?
It's 2 p.m. to 04. Actually.
So it's actually a lot of, not just a lot of miles apart from each other, but also a lot of time zones that we are apart. And I kind of interrupted you. So Tell us a little more. Who are you? What should people know about you?
But now that you tell me that I haven't gone to Belgium, you can invite me and we could have this conversation face to face, next time.
Actually, I tell that to most of my guests that indeed next time you are in Belgium, feel free to jump and into our house and to feel invited. There's actually already a few people that when they give training in Belgium or a conference that came over and spent a meal or something else in here. So yes, feel free if you're in Belgium to visit us. So we can definitely have that. At this moment this year, this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, is because I don't want to travel too much. This is I have teenage children and children at university. So for me, it's like, okay, this is probably some of the last years they're at home. So I try to avoid to go to other conferences and to leave Belgium. So I needed a way to see friends and to meet other people. So that's part of how I started this last year. And then I was lucky that Alistair Cockburn invited you. So here you are. So tell me a little more. What should I know about you?
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here in this webinar podcast or in this video that you are preparing for the people. And thank you for the people that are watching us. My name is Rocio Briceno. I already mentioned that I am based in Washington, D.C. and San Jose, Costa Rica. I recently wrote a book that is a practical guide for enterprise agility. And we will talk a little bit about that maybe in the conversation. I don't know if there is an opportunity. So I am an author, let's say, a co-author, because I wrote the book with my sister. And I also was vice president candidate for my country, Costa Rica, in the elections that ended up in February last year, 2022. So that was something quite of a challenge. And I was candidate for vice presidency with a proposal of an agile society for my country in order to make an agile government and agile values and the agile way to make the execution from the presidency to the top to all around the country, organizations, policy, innovation, everything that is related to public policy. But I am not a politician. Thank you.
Well, I know that Alistair already talked a little bit about it, and then after the recordings, he shared some more and really said, you really need to talk to this woman because she's amazing. And already, I don't know how little number of minutes we're recording, and I'm already amazed about the things. So you casually say, oh, I wrote the book, oh, I did this, and it's like, wow, okay.
Well, Alistair is, he is one of my teachers, let's say, in this journey, but he's also my friend. And we also wrote together a manifesto for social impact. I mean, it's social impact agile. So it's about how to use agile and agility, both concepts, in the way to do social responsibility and social impact projects. That is pretty much everything that you do in order to improve people's life. So we wrote that in 2019. I published it. Of course, we published it with the other people that also help on us, like Gerardo Blister. He was from Argentina, from Habitat of Humanity, and he joined us, and we wrote that. And coupled one of the professors of Instituto Tecnológico de Monterrey, that is in Mexico, and another person that was also in public policy in the Inter-American Development Bank. And I was working also as a consultant in the Inter-American Development Bank a little bit later than that. So we said, like, let's write something new for the people to have like a reference of a manifesto for social impact. So that is pretty much what I have been developing with Alistair, and recently with Joanne Stone. I don't know if you know her. It's in my invitations also.
Yes, yes, I know, Joanne. Yeah, she was already. I already recorded an interview with Joanne. So yeah.
Okay, so Joanne and myself, we also are working with Steve Member also, and we create something called Agility Impact that is kind of related to social impact agile and also the climate change that she's concerned about. And Steve is also about connecting people that is related to change the world. So we created the Agility Impact in order to promote all of these, like, let's say, organizations or movements or, I don't know, crazy madness that we have. So we are also having these meetups and like starting to move in the wheel in order to use agile in other aspects, in other fields. So that is what we are doing.
Yeah, I had a similar kind of conversation with Jutta Eckstein. I don't know if you know her, a woman from Germany that is using similar kind of ways. And basically the idea there was that, well, Agile is very value driven. So almost automatically the people who really care about Agile, a lot of them care about values and care about, doing something good for the people they're working with, but also for the world. So I'm not surprised that many people are doing these kind of initiatives. Okay, thank you. That's a wonderful introduction already, and it shows already why Alistair invited you. So let's start with that first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
Well, that I have a really strong communication with my mother.
Wow.
Pretty much every single day. And every initiative that I launch, I always discuss with her. And she's one of the pillars of my life to have success, or to, I don't know if success will be the word, but to enjoy and be happy with everything that just pop ups in my mind and we start creating. I mean, like, my mom was the editor of the book and my sister was the co-author. So
it's really it's a family business, that writing that book and having it. I was about to ask, because when you said earlier that your sister was a co-author, I thought, okay, how your mother must be involved. And at the moment that you say that your mother is so important, did she inspire you to write the book, or did you have that idea before her, or how did that work?
Was my sister. Because I have been telling that I want to write several like books. This is the first one, but I want to write that also. The second one about the society, in the agile society that I created, like the journey for the government of Costa Rica. So when we lost the elections, because I am not vice president right now, I said that many work to fix like 323 institutions that should help to other people. I mean, to other companies, governments, and bureaucracy. But I just like have the draft over there, and I didn't publish it because I haven't finished. And this one is for enterprise, for companies. So I wrote a guide because in my jobs, people always ask me about this, and my students always ask me about this, and I have too many PowerPoints and those things. And I have also the experience and the stories that I didn't have like collected in a single place. So my sister told me like, come on, you can do it. I mean, like, yeah, I don't want you to finish this year without the publication of that. So I was like, oh my God, I have to publish this before December this year. So I just did it. And my sister was correcting everything because I told her like, it's your fault that I am doing this. So now you help me. Yeah.
But you finished it, so it's
Yeah.
really like, yeah, I feel. Yeah, it's especially, and I really like the way you, you live the story. You don't just tell it, you live the story. Like your sister is pushing you, like how you have everything, and basically she's right, and you know it, so you listen to her. That's also interesting, because not many people would allow a brother or sister to give that, to do that much influence and listen. We might be annoyed if we do it. So that it's nice, and the end result is there, and then completely supported by your mother. And so you say that you call her or you hear her every day. So so that also means that, depending on where you live, that a lot of that is either, I assume, Skype or Zoom or anything, but it's a long distance conversation now. That's what I mean in most of the times. Is this correct?
Yeah, even when I was in Switzerland, like last year, also I was working over there in a project for Roche, the pharmaceutical. Was related to digitalization, transformation, marketing, of course, agile. So, I mean, the time zone difference is really, really tough. But we figured it out. I mean, like, we have really strong bond and connection. So pretty much she is always there for supporting me. I mean, like, in any possible way that she can, and me as well for them.
That's really nice if you can do that, if you can live that family and have that close connection. So it's nice that you share that story, because it's not for everyone. It is sometimes hard in both directions. So it's nice that it's possible, even long distance and everything. So it's assuming that you've been out of the house, not living with your mother, of course, for years. So that if you can keep doing that, that's very nice. I think many parents would be envious of your mother to have that, because I have to admit, I don't call my mother that often. I do have to say that since the pandemic, I take much more care of that, and I made sure that I called more. We visited a lot less for obvious reasons, but we called much more. It's a little bit declining, so I should probably pick that up again, because it's indeed very nice if you can do that. Okay, I want to move to that next question. So, if you had not been doing what you've been doing now, what would have become of you? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, an artist, painter. I used, when I was growing up, when I was a child, my family always like inspired me to develop art, music, poetry, writing, and also painting and sculpting. And I was really good painting. I mean, like, wow. I took classes and everything. So when I was going to enter to the university, I just stand up in front of my mother and my father, and I told them, I'm going to be a painter.
Wow.
Yeah. But,
And you were what age at that time? 18, 19, something like that?
Well, actually, I decided that when I was like 15. But
so even younger. So your parents could adjust to the fact that you didn't want to go to university, that you wanted to be a painter in that sense. Yeah. And what was their reaction when you said that?
They were like always like, yeah, you can do that as a secondary career. And I was like, no.
Study and then you do your passion.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine that was that you accepted that. It looks like you were like, no, I want to be, which should be my first career. Is that the right?
Yeah. And that was pretty much a fight the next 2 years, because I am from a humble family. I mean, like, when I was growing up, we were really close to the poverty line, let's say. I mean, like, my mom was taking care of us, and we were just like the kids, and my mom supported the entire family. So for one time, in a while the entire universe have my mother and my father in the same page, and they both say, no, you have to study something to bring you money, and later on you study art, or you study art at the same time in parallel, and you have another career that is marketing demanding.
So for them, they were like, we worked really hard to make sure that you can get out of poverty, that you can go to university, and now you would throw that away by going into art. That's a little bit how they looked at it. Is that how I should see it?
They don't say throw that away, because they always said like it's important to have the connection between your emotions and the art, because that is the way that the people heal their souls. So and they love art, both of them. But the thing is that they know that if you are not in a developed country, you need art and something else that provide the food in your table. So they said you have to study something that is a career in marketing demanding, and in parallel you can become whatever you want. Painter, musician, write poetry, whatever. But you need something to support and be sure that you will be all right, because you also like good things. So
basically they were kind of saying, okay, there is a heart part, that and the heart is going to the emotional part and the arts and everything, but there's also the brain part that says, well, make sure that you take care of yourself and money, and that you can basically escape that. Well, you weren't maybe not poor, but it was close to it, so you could escape that moment, because if you're that close to poverty, there's not much that should happen before you enter poverty. So if you can have a little more money, I can definitely see that for parents, yeah, that's probably the worst thing that you can think of for your children, that they would not be able to support themselves. And so yeah, I can imagine, as a parent, I can imagine how hard that choice is, and how hard, and what kind of advice should you give, because of course as a parent we always want want our children to be happy, and happiness is partially doing our passion. But if you're really poor, then there is another part that makes it hard to enjoy life and be happy.
yeah.
So it's and so you did in the end listen to that advice, or what happened there?
Yeah, no, I always listen to them, and I study computer engineering in the Costa Rican Technology Institute, that I am proud of, being one of the women in STEAM. That is one of the critical points to develop my country, because they want to impulse more women to go in this journey. So I have to say that I enjoy a lot my career, and I still work in my career in computer engineering as agile coach and project manager and delivery manager and all those things.
And when you say as a woman, how many women were there in your class at the moment that you did that? Were there many women? Five?
Just
And how big was the class at that moment?
the generation was 250.
Wow! So that's not even that's what less than 2%. So it's that's not much. And how is it today in your country?
Today it is like, I don't know exactly the numbers, but it's less than 20% in STEM careers, but it's improving.
But that's already 10 times better than it was in your time. So it's already better. It's for me, it's the trend that is more important than the current number, because the trend should become better. If I look back in my, I don't know any numbers either, but I know that it actually went down since I was studying in Belgium. I think it's going up again, but there was a time there were actually less women than there were in my class. So that's I need to count. It's probably also 5, but that was for 30 people or something like that. So that's a completely different balance kind of thing. So
well, there was 250, but we're like 5 groups, but just one group ended up, and I was one of the 5 that finished. So I mean, like, it's right now it is a story, but I at the end I think if I were advising now I have a stepdaughter. if I were advising my stepdaughter at that point also, I probably will tell the same that my parents tell me, that you have to have both something that is like trending and in the marketing, and something that is for your passion, for your soul. And you have to combine both, because you have to be a complete person, well-rounded, you know.
Yeah, I can definitely see that that is for some things, if it's really nice, if it grows your heart, but if it doesn't grow any money, then it can become hard as well. So you need to, yeah. But the passion is also where we learn a lot of things, and we learn to educate ourselves and to become better. It's a lot. Well, I've noticed that for myself, if you have a passion and if you work hard on something, the feedback, it both kills you, but at the same time it encourages me to make things better, and that is something that is useful in the other career as well. I would say that's something that is useful. So that's it's a very nice story that you tell, and that you were able to combine that in a sense. And in the end, you loved your career and you loved working in IT. So that it was not a big challenge. Well, maybe it was a big challenge, but at least you fell in love with it. So that's what I'm hearing. So there
I
was.
say that I am a weird IT person. Yeah.
And what does that mean if you compare it? How should I interpret that sentence?
Because you know the stereotype of the IT, like regular guy or person, is like you see in Big Bang Theory, that they are so geek and they are just
Oh
like
yeah.
this. And I am not. I mean, I am really social. I speak with the people, and I am like, that is why for me agile is kind of like integral part of my life, because I have always had it. I didn't have to develop something, another skill, because with the art, with the poetry, and with the painting, you are well connected with your emotions, and you are also well connected with what is surrounding you.
Yeah, I can definitely see a lot of similarities between you and Alistair, because Alistair just, I think, between when I interviewed him and now, he published also a book with poetry that he kickstarted it.
Yeah.
So that was actually one of his dreams. So it took him a while to do it, but yeah, because poetry is important for him as well, I think. So
That is how we started our friendship, because I write poems too. So yeah.
Yeah, I've done some of that, but more as a student. I haven't actually. I wrote the very last poem for my partner, as she. I told. Okay, let's go into detail. I told her that I was in love with her, but she told me that she was not in love with me, and as a result, I wrote the poem, and in the end, we became a couple. But that was actually the very last poem I've ever wrote. So it's both nice and tragic. I don't know what side, depends on how I look at it, but I prefer to look at the positive side. So it's yeah.
But it's sweet. I mean, that
Yes,
is
it's sweet, and it's sweet, and I still like what I wrote back then. So it's a nice one. Okay, let's move to that next question. What is for you your biggest challenge, and why is that a good thing for you? Of course, the biggest challenge that you want to share, it still is on the internet. So I know that some people don't want to share everything, and that's fine as well. You're still in control of what you want to share.
When, because you invite me to this conversation, and I was thinking about that question, and I have passed through several like answers.
So
First,
if you're here, be ready for a long conversation. If you,
I mean, like first I thought about like self-publishing a book. That is a challenge because you write a lot of things, but having this, I mean, like from imagining through real having it and put it in the stores, that is a challenge. But that is not the biggest. So I thought,
but you achieved it. So you achieved it, but then, like you said, it was also a little bit thanks to your sister that was pushing you and saying, "Come on, you." Because I like that you put it out, because I think there's many people that want to write something, but writing the part is the easy part. But then it's rewriting it, it's molding it until it's, because basically as an author you have to do the work so that the people that read the book, for them it's easy. If it's a book that is hard to read, for me, an author didn't do enough of his or her work. And so that is hard. That is a big challenge. So thank you for doing that for the people who are reading your book.
And you
And of
passed
course, I will link the book in the show notes as well, that people can download or can buy the book.
Thank you. But you passed through the same, so you know what I am talking about, because you wrote a book too.
I've written multiple ones, and the very first one was this that I published, was this kind of thing that is now on the video, that it was who's agile, and so that was the same kind of questions. And I just added a few more for the video, but that was sent out to a lot of people. And that avoided for me that I have to do a lot of the work, because people were writing the answers. So most of my work was contacting everyone, but it helped me past the idea of, oh, it's impossible to write a book. And so it helped me to get that out. It first was on my blog, but then I moved it to a book. And yeah, it's really, because next to the technical hard part that we just talked about, I think there is also the emotional part. Can I write a book? Will people read it? And is it worth it, and everything? And that I passed because there were so many people who helped out. And so it felt more like, oh, now all these people have written something. I definitely have to publish it, because I have to not let down all these people. And so there is the other part that is there as well. That is indeed, but that was my challenge. So let's hear about your other challenges.
Well, that was a personal challenge, I have to say. But when I received the phone call to become vice president candidate for my country, because I was invited to join to the group and to review the entire institutions and organization of my country and how the government works and how you put agile on that. That was not a personal challenge. That was something to give back to the society. And that the challenge was how I bring something from myself, from the studies that I have, from my experience, to improve maybe a big or maybe just a little bit, but any improvement that you can do, like in that size, will be a huge improvement for the people. So that connected me to entire other thinking, because me as an engineer with the art and the things, and me into the politics is another world. So what's opening me like a door like that was wide open to me in order to think about what is my impact in the future of the people, in the future generations. So that was a challenge.
It puts a lot of pressure on you. I can imagine that it's not, again, if we're helping out as agile coaches, if we're helping teams, we're impacting other people's life. But yeah, I don't want to look negative on that work, because I love the work and I know we're touching a lot of people, but it's limited to the group of people that we're talking about, even if that could be a large group. But if you're a vice president of a country, that's a bigger group of people.
Yeah.
And you don't well, the other part is you don't talk to all of these people. As an agile coach, one of the ways how I help these people is talk to them, listen to them, hear what are their problems. As a vice president, well, you can talk to some people, but it's always like a very limited amount of people that you talk to compared to the number of people that you change their lives. And for some it will be better, and for others it might be worse. I mean, every direction you go, it helps some people and it's negative for others. And hopefully you help the people that need most help, and you help a bigger group than the people is negative and whatever, but it's hard. So tell us some more. How did that work for yourself?
I mean, like, suddenly I was with this like mission, let's say, to help as much people as I can in my country, but thinking also about the future generation. How you design your country for the future, what values and how you want the institutions and the government to be like taking care for your children and for the future generation. What is your legacy? But suddenly when I was like making all the lean and value stream mapping and checking all the things that you have to make, put in more agile way, let's say, I started contacting from people that were involved in Scrum Alliance, in Agile Alliance, in in Business Agility Institute, and in PMI, and in Discipline Agile. So Costa Rica is a small country in Central America with the entire attention to people like everywhere. Agile Japan, people from Philippines, people from United Nations.
Everybody. So you found that your country, impacting the people in your country was already big, and now you have the whole world on your back and looking at what you're doing.
Yes, they were wondering how to put Agile in an entire government. And what was the proposal? So something that I was like reading, that I was writing and checking with the volunteers over there and understanding how to put like in practice there during the campaign also. And suddenly I received all these people from everywhere. So, I mean, that was an amazing experience, but it was a huge challenge to handle. Yeah.
I can imagine. And the second part is, why is it a good thing? But I think you already showed so much part about it. It's definitely, it's a very nice story. And then receiving all these, ideas and eyeballs from people around the world, I can definitely think that's good. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you progress and that you can, you can focus again, because that seems like a hard part of that.
And that brings me to the third challenge, that is the one that I mentioned today, is a challenge because I am not vice president candidate no more, because we lost the elections. I mean, we left the legacy for them and the proposals, but we lost the election. I think, and I realized after this story of the politics and after being like engineering also in Costa Rica and here in the USA and in Switzerland, that people are losing hope. People are hopeless. I mean, like, I don't know if it is because of the COVID or if it is because of the war, or I don't know what is happening. If it is because of Netflix and television, and I don't want to say any specific brand, but I said like streaming, let's say in generic way, or I see people that they don't think that the human beings are good no more, that the leaders want to be good no more, that the politicians are bad people, and maybe the majority of them are, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But people just think like we work to survive and to pay the bills, and they lose the connection with something that is bigger than us, you know? So I think that is my biggest challenge now, because I really think that people are good, and I really believe in humanity, and I believe in that we can reverse the problems that are happening with the global warming, and we can like end up with the war. I think that the human being is so amazing that we could achieve things that are great. And I want to share that, and that is why everything that I write and everything that I teach and all the lectures that I bring and every like conference or job or everything, pretty much everything that I do is trying to live that message. That
I love your story, and it reminds me of a book that my father actually, I think it's my father, my father gave me, and he gave it to me in Dutch, but I just recently discovered that it's been translated. So never talk about books here, but let's bring my one of here, and the book is called in English "Humankind" of Rocio Briceno, and basically it tells a lot of the same thing that you say, is that the people are kind, and the people, most of the people in generally are okay and are good. I haven't read it. I have read only part of it, so I can't tell everything about that, but I can definitely say that there's some research. So it's not just it's a researcher that wrote some of that stuff. It's been criticized also in Belgium it's a Dutch book originally. So some people say there are some things that might not be a little bit too optimistic and not scientific, but in general, most people like the book and say, "Oh, this is actually making us think a lot like what you are saying here." That people are kind, and it always reminds me of a story I once heard about when there's bad people. Always look, so for if people are bombing or doing something bad, there's typically one or two bad people, and there's like tons of hundreds of people who are helping out. When the bombing of the marathon happened in Boston, there was like, okay, there's one of I don't know how many, there's a few bombers that did some bombing, but then everybody that was in Boston around the place where the marathon was held were helping out, bringing strangers into their home to give them water, to give them to charge their phone, to call their family, to say I'm okay, and stuff like that. So it's like hundreds and thousands of people were helping these runners, and it just for just a few bad people. But of course, what gets on the news is the bombing, and I think it was Joanna Rotman that told me that story. That was one of her daughters that took part on the marathon, and she told me that story. Like, look, if you see on the news, you see the bad people, and you see everything that's going bad, but you don't hear on the news what are all the good people and all the other people that are helping. And I think what I hear with you is kind of similar. We should not lose hope, and we should really help people look at the good people, because yes, and there will always be bad people, but if we look around, then and we see a lot of good people. And the one thing, and again, it's not about me, so I want to go much more to you, but the one sentence that I always add to that is that if you don't see any good people around, it's time for yourself to be that person and to act in good things. That's the one value that I add on top of that, because sometimes there is that thing that you see something's bad is happening and nobody's supporting. I don't know, a person getting harassed on the streets or whatever, something bad. Then, well, maybe it's up to you to be in the universe and to say, well, Willie, wait a minute, let's stop doing this bad thing. So and I think a lot of what you said about how you jumped into that, because you were not a politician by family, and you're not a politician by study or whatever. You just basically were jumped in because people liked what you were doing and they were asking for your help, and you kind of stumble into politics, if I would say it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I believe in God, and sometimes you don't know why the things happens, but they happen for a reason.
And then you learn from it and you do it. So, well, and I want it kind of brings me to that next question. You sound like a very passionate person. The fact of the art and everything, and also what I heard from Alistair, that he made it very clear that you're a passionate person. So I wonder, where is that drive, that passion coming from? Do you have any idea where that originally comes from?
I think it's an instinct. I could say that is something else that is, but it's not. I mean, like, I study engineering and I study an MBA, so I have all the basics of management and processes, and also
and the brains to do it, because these are things that are not easy to do. So that's.
Thank you, but yes, but I mean, like, I have the blessing that I always do what makes me happy or what I want to do. Sometimes in the short term, that doesn't make me happy because that implies some suffering in the journey. But
in the end, you're happy that you did it then. That's what I'm hearing.
But I decide, I take my own decisions based on what I want to do. So.
And you live with the consequences, both good and bad.
Yes. So that is what drives me, my instinct. I don't know, my inner voice to, okay, let's say like, uh, I want to go to Japan and start and translate the book in Japanese, and talk to the Japaneses, and let's see what happens over there. And maybe over there I find something totally different, like that I have in my mind. Like, and in the same way, when I moved here to the USA, and I mean, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. And when I entered into the politics, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I mean, like, but every single like episode that I have passed through, I have enjoyed it a lot. So
that's a very, very, very nice story. I don't know what happened. Anyway, you're back. We're back. So we talked about that. So we just talked about what drives you. That was a really wonderful answer. So I want to go to that next question. What you consider your biggest achievement? And you already talked about so many nice achievements. You talked about, well, everything that you just talked about, the book, the vice presidency, and everything, being asked for that, and a lot of other things. Also, what you co-wrote with Alistair. But is there, what do you consider your biggest achievement? Is there something else that is even more important for you? How should I see this?
my biggest achievement is being alive.
Wow.
I have passed through too many health situations and accidents. And the most recently one, I was driving my bicycle, an electrical one, and I got hit by a car that just ran away.
Wow.
Here in the USA. And I have a fracture here in this part of the face. And I just had the surgery last month, and I recovered, and I am back working. And after I had COVID, when I was running for vice president candidate, and I have a health condition. So when I was running for vice president candidate, I said, like, my God, I have to be exposed to many people, crowded, So
that is a risk, yes.
There is a high risk that I will get it, and I got it. So,
like many people at that time, I did have it, but as well, but I only had it like last summer. So when everything was over, after I had already, I don't know, 2 shots, I think I even had an extra shot. So that's a big difference if you have been vaccinated than if you go look back at the original one. So were you really ill from that? Was that?
I had a condition, so I had the vaccine already, but I still have a condition.
Exactly. So there is, yeah.
And I was really, really scared. I mean, that scared me a lot. And I mean, like, I suffered. I thought I was gonna die.
Mhm.
I have crashed flying a paraglide also. when I
Wow.
when I was starting to get a pilot license, and I got graduated, but like 3 months after that, I just my wing just collapsed, and I had an accident, and I crashed against the mountain. So,
Wow. There really is somebody out there taking care of you, because, well, this is a horrible accident. So maybe he or she didn't pay attention for a few seconds when that happened to you, but at the end, you still survived. So that there must be somebody that really thinks that you still have great things to achieve. Indeed, if you've survived all these kind of things.
like, people are always looking for, like, the meaning of being alive, and the purpose, and the ikigai, and those amazing things, like just being alive and having your life functional and being responsible with your own things. that is a huge achievement.
Yeah, you're not the first on this show who talks about still being alive, like surviving COVID. It. I just had a conversation even just last evening about we've been to an horrible 3 years. That was hard for a lot of people. Uh, I know that we were lucky in the sense that we had built a new house like just a few years before COVID. So our children have a big room and everything a lot better than it was before. In a sense, we were prepared. Well, not really, but still, the situation was better. And even for us, it was hard. I mean, we focused on making sure that the children could stay and could do and be as happy as possible in such a horrible situation. And it was hard for us. So I can imagine if people live in small homes, if you need to work and everybody needs to go listen to school and all at the same time in a small crowded room with bad internet, that's just horrible. And then it's people who have already internet, because there are still other people that don't have computers, that don't have internet, who are locked in their homes and that could not talk to other people. And of course, they want to go out, and then it's becoming dangerous for everybody in that same house. So that's.
Imagine that when COVID hits, I was helping to rescue a project that provides water to a population. So one project that was just like providing water and how you make like the data and collection and the data analytics and all these things in order to have the numbers about the water supply that is important for like understanding the forecast. It becomes critical from one moment to the other because the population didn't have water, and the basic thing was washing your hands. so from one moment to the other, I was just like making a regular project and rescue a regular project that is with problems. I mean, like day-to-day business.
So this is caring for people's lives, and yeah, this is.
Yes. I mean, like another project was like how to enable hospitals in Venezuela with the Venezuela crisis, and that crisis that was happening in Venezuela, suddenly the entire world was in crisis. I mean, like, yeah, just being alive is a major achievement these days.
Well, I was about to say, if you're working on this kind of project, you don't need ikigai and anything. You mean it puts everything into perspective, and like you say, then you know that being alive is still, yeah. And then you mentioned it briefly also, the war. I mean, I've been to Ukraine. I've been invited a few times to speak there. I consider have lots of friends there. That last time I was there was 2015, so Russia had already invaded Crimea at that time, and I know many people were worried about it. And we really had long conversations in the evening about it, and I really felt for them, and I really thought, okay, Russia is going to start the rest of the war in the next year. Then they kind of, well, not forget about it, but it didn't happen for another 5 to 7 years. But it still happened. So they were completely right. And I know that, yeah, just thinking about these people there, and I can't, of course, not send messages to them every week. Are you still alive? That doesn't help them either. But they're in my thoughts basically every week when I think about it. I actually started learning Ukraine on Duolingo on my phone. I know it won't help them, but it feels for me a way to think about them, and a way to think about what's happening there, and hoping that, yeah, that all of the people that I know there will stay alive. And that's what you're saying, yeah. In these times, yes, we need to be hopeful. Yes, we need to think about the positive of the world, but staying alive is indeed an important part for many of us in the last 4 to 5 years, I would say. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. We agree on that too.
Yeah, it feels. I feel very connected to everything you say about that. Well, I want to jump to that next question. That, do you have any personal agility tip to share? Because you talked already about many different things that are helping the world and other things, but it also feels that in everything you do, agile and what you've learned from agile is somehow part of it. So do you have any tip that you want to share with the rest of the world?
Well, for me, agile is a way of living. Actually, when I was talking, well, I met also, of course, Alistair, but I also met Ari van Bennekom, that is one of the writers also of the original Manifesto.
I've worked with Ari in Belgium, so I know who he is. Not many people, or not enough people know him. Let's put it like this, indeed.
Bring a big hug to him from my end here. So,
I will.
yeah.
It's been a while. Again, COVID. It's been a while since I've seen him, but yes, I like that person as well. So it's.
So, I mean, like when I talk to them, I always say, like, for me it's kind of breathing. I mean, it's not like you mentioned, like this pillar and this other one and the values and the readings, and I mean those things are kind of logical. From one point, I mean, maybe 20 years ago that was like a new thing, but right now that is the way of like surviving in these kind of times with these weird things that are happening in the world every day. So let's say my tip will be try to be happy. I mean, enjoy every single step that you do, even if it is a, let's say, short sprint in your life. And just enjoy everything that is happening and like keep moving and keep the hope, because at the end of the day, we all of us we born just to be happy. That is our major responsibility.
I really like that, and indeed, so much things when you're happy are easier. Even if like you said earlier on, it's not that being happy is maybe not really about contentment and not really about top joy and whatever. No, there is. You cannot have a top all the time. You only have tops if you have lows. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you cannot be happy in all these things. Like if I don't know, it reminds me of people who are running and stuff like that. When you're running or you do any kind of sport, you do things to your body and it's hard. But afterwards, like you said earlier on, afterwards you're really happy that you've done it. And probably when the moment that you put on your shoes to go running, you don't feel, I don't know if I want to do it. And then maybe you have someone like your sisters pulling and say, come on, let's go. We promised we were going to for a run. And then you do that. And then, yeah, you can't know that you're going to be happy, but still it's kind of hard. But after you've run, then it's like, wow, okay, I'm really happy I've done it. And that's, enjoy even, and then during the running while people have runner's high and all the kind of stuff, you can feel good even if it hurts, but it's really try to enjoy the whole path. That's what I'm hearing you tell.
Yeah.
And
enjoy the every day, enjoy the moment and be happy. I mean, like, that's it.
yeah, but I also feel it in this conversation, the laughter wow, it's not that I don't have many people who laugh on the show, but you're definitely one of the people who laugh a lot. Even in the few technical glitches that we had at the start and in the middle, we just kept on flowing, and it keeps staying fun. And that also gives a lot of energy, even if it's on, for me, a Friday evening. So that's really nice. It's a really good tip. And I hope many people can follow up and try to be happy much more, because it's, in a sense, and I'm not saying that it's only a choice, but it is a choice to try to be happy in the things that are happening. And in some parts of life, it's really hard if you're losing a friend, or if you're losing people around you. Of course, I'm not saying that you should be happy at that moment. That's not it. But trying to be happy in the situation that you are is definitely a way of life. Like you say, it's agile is part of your life. Trying to be happy is part of your life. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah?
Exactly.
I really like that. Let's move to that next question about remote work. Well, you already talked that you had remote conversations with your mother and that you have to work around it, time zone wise and everything. and it feels that you have been doing remote work for not just during COVID, but for a lot longer. So I'm looking forward to tips and hearing what is that. Yeah, what idea do you have on how to make remote work your life better?
Yes, I have been doing remote working since I got graduated. Like, I mean, like long time ago. Well, not so long. But maybe since 2005, I am working remotely or hybrid, let's say, because sometimes the projects were in USA and I was in Costa Rica. Some other times were in Europe and I was from there. So yeah, it's part of my life. I will say a tip for remote working is don't just stay at home. Go out to see the sunlight at some point. Make a break, make a stop. Because it's really easy, especially if you are like me, that I love to be connected into the computer and to the gadgets all the time, because I mean, like, I love to be just researching and doing stuff, and I have artificial lights, so the time pass, and I don't realize that I haven't had breakfast, I haven't had lunch, I have not making any stuff during the day. I barely go to the bathroom. So
You talked earlier about not being a typical IT person, but I think there is definitely that kind of person is a little bit hidden in you as well, I would say.
yeah, I mean, I enjoy part of that, but because I somehow I developed that this is also my social life, because I got
Yes.
connected with everybody also.
And you talk about having a family in two countries, so your computer is helping you to actually connect and feel connected to people in the country that or the cities that you're not in. So
Yes.
and when you talk about Alistair being your friend, well, that's also a long-term friend, I don't know how do you call it, long-term, long-distance friendship,
Yeah.
in a sense that you don't see each other all the time, not every day, not every week, because he's traveling all around. You're traveling, so it's also, and I assume for many of the people who are listening here, this is our world, this is our life. We have indeed. Um, I don't agree with people that people who are connected to their phones, they don't go out in the real world, because they might actually be much more connected. If I look at how my children connect to friends, they're a lot more social than I am, than I was at their age. Because I did have long phone calls with when I had a relationship or something like that, but that was it. And then there was letters, so maybe there's two ways of connecting at that time. And now there's so many other ways to connect. And like you said, we should still go out. We should still indeed not forget about the real world. The other world is also real, but it's the
You know,
sunlight and everything.
I am making a PhD now.
Wow.
Yeah, and my PhD.
So you mentioned casually, oh yeah, by the way, I'm writing a PhD. So
So my PhD is actually a research about how we introduce people that are late out or left out of the technology education. I mean, let's say could be people 30 or older, because it's not like about age, it's about like people that is not involved into the metaverse, into the this connection virtual activities and those things, and how the generation C, the generation that is like younger than 25 years old, how they can teach the others in an agile way so they could have a better job opportunities. So that is my PhD research, selecting a population that is like right now out of the job market, and a population of young generations that they are like trying to teach each other in an agile cycle.
and learning from each other, because I can imagine these so-called older people, they still have value. They still have life lessons that they can teach the younger generation, I would assume.
Yes, but the thing is that for C generation, the real world is the virtual world. Because we are so interconnected now that reality has changed, and reality right now is in between. But for older generation, the reality is when you turn off your laptop or when you turn off your cell phone. So
Yes.
those interactions make us to have a new economy that is an economy of the knowledge. And we have to start getting prepared the people, because people are losing jobs and they are losing the capacity to make money. And we are in a multiple economical crisis in the world. So we have to address somehow a way, in agile way, to help that people. So now that you throw me this question, I mean, like, yes, I am connected all the time, and those are real connections. But the thing is that we still need the sunlight. We still need to feel like the rain. We still need to have the touch in our skins. So we have to make a schedule for that.
It sometimes feel very artificial, but it's, yeah, we when we're young we do a lot of things in a natural way, but when the older I get, the more I realize sometimes we need indeed to schedule to go out. We need to schedule to, yeah, it's because otherwise life takes over, and like you say, you're attached, or we are attached to our devices so much that we forget about going out and other things. It's and the opposite is true. We need maybe to teach the older people that, okay, you don't need to be connected all the time, but at least once every X time, every day, every week, every month, whatever is needed, you need to look at your device to, well, because then you will see, you might think, I don't see my grandchildren anymore, but maybe they send you pictures every day in a digital way, and because they tell you I love you in their way of sending pictures. And it's insane is the wrong word. It's incredible how I've seen family, my mother-in-law, my both my parents using a phones to, when they start using it and they start to understand it, that actually it opens up their world, and you can actually see, and then they very quickly send a lot of messages, a lot of emoticons and pictures and everything, maybe at the level that it's more than some of the youngsters. So once they start to get it, so I really like that you have a PhD to research that. So how did that happen? How did you start doing that? Because you have already so many things. So how do you then even think like, oh, I have still time for a PhD? How did that work?
Well, that was the driver that you mentioned. When I was vice president candidate of my country, one of the major, there was like different challenges. The first challenge was the economy. So I wanted,
in many countries the last 5 years, I would say.
Yeah. So I wanted to help my country to introduce the digital ways in order to open new markets. Let's say use NFT like cryptos and those things like blockchain and those kind of technologies to more people, so they can sell also in the metaverse and the new technologies that are coming. But how I bring that to people that are not so techy, not so engaged into this new technology. So and how I can do that so they can survive and surpass the economical crisis that is happening right now. So it has to be in the fastest way possible. So I wanted to create something, but I didn't know what in order to do that. The other thing is that with the COVID and also some situations that happened in my country before the COVID, the education had a collapse because kids were they used to go to regular classes in a classroom, physical way, and suddenly everybody was like shut down, everybody was from home, and they didn't have a teacher at home, and some of them they didn't have like even internet. So that make a hard stop in the education, and we lost a lot of people, a lot of kids that they stopped going to the school after the COVID situation passed.
Wow.
So we have,
Because they felt disconnected and they felt they couldn't continue with the schools.
yeah.
I didn't even think about that, because that's something that probably it happened also a little bit in Belgium, because it's not that we don't have these kind of people, but I didn't realize that the large scale that could happen in other countries. So that's hard.
So I mean, like if you have 3 kids and there is just one computer and the mother or the father using their laptop to work, I mean, the kids just stop taking their education.
Mm.
And if they barely have internet in some areas, I mean, that becomes a huge, massive effect that is affecting the future generations also of the people that are just out of possibilities to get out of the poverty.
Mm. Yes, I get that.
So I wanted to know more about how you improve the education. I mean, because I study computer engineering and administration. So I said, like, this is bigger than I understand, because education is a totally different world.
Mhm.
But how you can make like a policy to help the education part in order to improve the economy if you don't understand anything about education. So
Yes.
that is why I said, like, okay, I will get a PhD, so I will make the research in education.
Some people could read some books and talk to people, but you say, okay, this is what I mean with passion. You just jump into it with with so much passion, like, okay, this is important, and it is important. And you just say, so important that you say, I want to be able not just to understand it, but I also really want to have a PhD about it. You amaze me every 5 minutes, even more. I would say it's incredible.
Well,
It's
thank you.
yeah,
I just started. I mean, I will tell you in 3 years from now what is the end of the research.
I see that as a promise to call you back in 3 years. It reminds me of a story that is also in the podcast with Linda Rising. That Linda Rising, when I talked to her, she just turned 80. So she talked about the story when she got her PhD. She was 50, and at the time, and the people in her class said, like, why are you still going for a PhD? Because you woman, you're 50 years old. That's extremely old. Why would you still go for a PhD? And she says, now at 80, like, I spent 30 years of my life with the PhD. That's much longer than I was into the work field before my PhD, because she started working after 20. So she actually has now longer her PhD than before, even if she did it at the age of 50. And yeah, that's such an inspiration for me, for people like I'm also just over 50 at this moment. So for me it's like, yeah, it 50, of course, if you ask my children, like, yeah, you're old and blah, blah, but yeah, it's and of course my parents are still alive. They're still a lot older, but it's true, at that age, it's they're closer to their death than to being born. That's for sure. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I doubt that I will get 100, so I'm actually also more closer, but there still is a lot of years ahead of me, and more years than I started working, because I don't know, I think I was 24 or 25 something when I started working. So in that sense, there still is a lot of time left of the adult life. That's and so in that sense, I definitely believe that when you, with so much passion, when you start such a project, it will definitely lead to some things. It might not lead to that paper. That is possible, because indeed it is hard, and but you will definitely get a lot of learning from that, and learn from different kind of things.
Well, I would like to end it up with something that is useful in order to address this problem. So that is what the research is about, and that is why, because I could choose something that is like just documentary research and those things, but I want something in the real field, so it could help these people to learn and have these skills. And I have measured like the numbers in order to reproduce that maybe in other countries. So I mean that is my dream. But let's see. I will tell you.
Why aim low if you can aim high? And why? Because a lot of what you're doing is about changing the world, and you have already achieved a lot of that. And probably if you have a bad day, you can think about all the other things that you didn't achieve, but you did achieve already a lot of things with aiming high. I think that's part of what I hear in many of the stories. And then something come across your path, and you say, actually, that would be helpful as well. So let's jump into that. So that's all very nice stories that you're sharing. I didn't expect that to talk about it when we talked about remote work, and then all of a sudden we talk about the PhD that you're doing. So I love how this conversation is going all kind of directions. I want to move to that next question about what's a book you have read, or a couple of books, or books that you think are interesting to talk about.
Oh yes. I was telling you about the book from Bauman that is called Modern Liquid Modernity.
And I thought first I found two covers of the book, but it turns out that it's two different books, I think. Yeah, Liquid Times and Living in Age of Uncertainty, and then Liquid Modernity. I think that's a different kind of book. So it's not just one book, there's a series of books there that Bauman wrote about. So tell me, why should I read this book? Why is that an interesting for me or the people who are here?
I love it. This book is Sigmund Bauman. He is a philosopher, or he was a philosopher. So, and he's talking about how the things have changed during the times from his perspective of as a philosopher. So he sees like how everything is liquid. Let's say like it's temporary, like things.
That kind of liquid. Okay.
Yeah. So the things are not like hard and established like they used to be, and right now they are like more moving and flexible. Let's say like also even the relationships, like the marriages, like people used to think like, okay, I grow up and I finish my studies and I get married and I have children and later on I will pass away. But right now, yeah. But right now people is not like that. And people, elderly people, they continue being like active and they continue having relationships and starting with new like lives and moving from countries. So, and young people, they don't think that they are establishing a new in a place, a single country or a single place, and they don't even want to buy like real estate or any apartment because they want the freedom to move around, and they don't even know if they like if they are heterosexual or like homosexual. They don't define, and they don't have that tax no more because everything is in constant movement and everything is liquid.
And how is that different than before? Was that before, according to this book, or according to you, is that something that was already there before and we kind of ignored it and we didn't want to see it, or is that now much more liquid than before? How should I see that?
The book, the author, he proposed, or he has a theory that because of the interconnectivity that we have now, and everything goes more accelerated now, we could connect with people that has some value that I have, and that breaks all the paradigma that we used to have. So if before we were defined for our language, our geography, and our religion, right now that doesn't define me. I connect with the people that has the same value that I have, even if that person is in China, in Japan, in Philippines, or in Australia.
And before, you would just feel like a strange kind of person from your country, or from Washington, whatever. But you would feel, yeah, you would maybe not understand, or the people around you would not understand, and you'd feel like, okay, I'm just a lonely person with this crazy idea. And it turns out, if you look that, oh, in China there's like hundred thousands of people who are the exact same thing, and yeah, on the internet, then you can find your crowd, in a sense. That's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that idea, and that's, yeah, it's, yeah, I've never heard of it, so I didn't read the book. So it's definitely something that is a really interesting concept, and it reminds me a little bit of when people live in. I have a niece that lived in a not so small city, but still it was a different kind of city. And she grew up and not having role models of being gay and anything. So for her, the only role model she saw was heterosexual relationships. And it was only when she went studying in another city where she actually saw that, okay, there is also the possibility not just to have relationship with men, but there's also the possibility to have relationship with women. And only then she started to understand some of the feelings that she had, and said, oh, okay, and that's a little bit like what you're saying now, with the world opening up with the internet and all these kind of things, is that we find all kind of role models for other kind of differences, and,
Yeah.
and the differences that matter and makes us actually unique in a sense.
And also in the way of work, because before, when you think like in other ways, and this is what the author mentioned,
Mhm.
you have just one job for 20, 30 years.
Oh yes, like my parents had, well, my father had a few jobs, my mother had two jobs, but indeed it's like almost always the same, and it's definitely years and years and years. And now these days, indeed, youngsters, that for them, they might have a career, but at different kind of companies. That's definitely very, very liquid compared to 30,
Yeah.
40 years ago. Oh
Yes.
yeah, so that's even that kind of connection. I didn't see that. So yeah, it's and so this author, from what I understand, in this book, he's talking about that kind of liquidity in all kind of parts of society and all parts of our life. Is that how I should see the book?
Yes, I mean, like, he's a philosopher, so he relates about the history of the times. There are like times that at some point there is modernity,
Hmm.
and after the modernity there is like, well, philosophers, they call that post-modernity. They didn't put a
Hmm.
name on that. So
Until we have a better name, it's postmodernity, and then yeah, then of course for that period after we need a different name, because otherwise it's postmodernity. But yes.
that is pretty much our time. That is contemporary times, because over
Mm.
that was the other history times over there. So the author says we are not in the postmodernity, we are in the liquid modernity, because
Mm.
right now everything is liquid. There is nothing state, there is nothing that is solid no more. So everything changes and everything is fluid. So
Mm.
I love it. I mean, like, I recommend the book.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think if there is that. Yeah, it's not in terms of positive or negative. It just is. I think a lot of it indeed is liquid in many different things, and I assume all of us, we like some stability in some parts. And but what you need and want as stability might be completely different as what I want, and that's okay as well. So that's an interesting concept to think about. So I'm afraid I have again a few books on my stack to read. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think that the stability right now is to be able to change in that liquid environment.
Well, and I think this brings me back to another conversation I had with a few people here around COVID and everything. Is that some people really hated the rules that were changing and everything, but yeah, the situation was changing, so of course you need to adapt the rules to that. And so the rules were liquid in a way as well. They kept changing because we learned new things about that virus. And so definitely there was some liquidity there, and people said, yeah, but they should have thought better before they spoke. No, they didn't have time to do that. They needed to act very quickly and act and okay, and then some of the things will change. And I see, well, I would say in a sense that most agilists were much better prepared for that kind of world, because we know that things will change, and we know that we need to adapt, and we know that we don't want to hear that best message. No, we want the fastest message to help us save lives, and then the better version next week, because that's how life is. And in that sense, and does he talk in the book about that as well, that some people have it easier with that kind of liquidity than others? Is that
No, because the book is not so recent. I don't remember the year that it was written, but pretty much the author is kind of explaining from his point of view, because he also survived the all several situations in his life, like going out from Europe to like other to America, and also other stuff that happened to him because he was in a politician persecution.
Whoa, okay, that kind of thing. So that's yeah, that's again another type of life and another type of issues there.
Yeah.
Wow. But okay, thanks for explaining, and thanks for bringing that up, because it's indeed it might be an important book for many people, and I think this definitely will get on my stack to read. Let's move to for me one of the most interesting question, and with after everything that we just talked, I'm really curious about this question. What question do you think I should also ask you, and what's the answer?
If I am happy, and the answer is yes.
I would be very surprised if the answer would be no after this conversation, but still, it's also important to ask, and indeed to not assume, because it's not because people are laughing all the time that they are happy. There could be all kind of things there. So definitely, that's it's and it's important question that we don't always ask enough, and that we don't always ask. Take the time, because then when if how are you, or is everything okay, if at work people ask us, we tend to brush it off and say, yeah, everything's fine, instead of taking the real answer. And if you say, well, today is a little bit lesser, than people are really like, what why did you say that answer? Well, if you don't want to hear that I don't have a good perfect day, then you shouldn't ask that question. But let's please keep asking the question. Let's keep doing it. Is there anything specific what made you choose this question? Because I'm really interested why you choose that question.
You know, last year I had a meeting, a gathering with my high school classmates, and that was kind of revealing for me, because it has passed like more than 10 years that I didn't see any of them because of everything, life, you know.
Life happens.
And I mean, all of us, like, we have our own stories now, but when we were teenagers, I mean, we used to have fun in our different ways. and and we also have good memories of everybody. So at the end, we just want like everybody to have a good life, you know. So the only question that I wanted to make to them is if they are okay, if they are happy. That is the only thing that I wanted to know about them when I saw them. Of course, we went party and we forget about our age and everything. But that is why I think that is a good question.
It's indeed a very good question to ask, and that's, well, one of the things I wanted to do was also with this series is keep recording all the questions that people are asking, because that brings a very nice list of questions to ask other people from time to time. So that's and that's definitely one that should make that list. So that's that's thank you for that question. It's a short answer and at the same time a very important answer, and I like the backstory to that. So thanks for sharing that as well.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I really feel happy that you bring that kind of question. It's an important one, and it shows also again the passion, because some of these answers, they're very passionate, and they're talking about very important things, but you bring back that passion, you bring that emotion in many of these things. So that makes it a very interesting conversation. I want to move to that next question about who should I ask next. Who are people that you think that, okay, if let's have also a conversation with them?
Like to include in this interview, you mean?
Yes.
Well, I have bring you some names already, but right now at this moment, I remember about a person that I met during these days. Her name is Kadidra. Let me look at her LinkedIn to see if I find her. Kadidra Hertz, I think is her last name.
Mm-hmm.
I will pass you her LinkedIn now, but with her name you can find her. And she found something. She's the founder of a movement called Agile in Color.
Hmm.
So she's making like real big efforts in order to include people that are people from color in order to have all the opportunities and trying to achieve something that similar to what happened with women in Agile, but with Agile in color. So, and I have the honor to work with her in an Agile bootcamp that we were part of the organizers here in Washington, D.C. last month. And I really think you will enjoy the conversation with her.
The name at this moment doesn't ring a bell, but I've definitely heard about Agile in Color initiative from the Agile Alliance. It's definitely something that I heard about. So I'm not sure why I don't remember the name. Maybe it's just that it's Friday evening and I'm tired. That could be it. But definitely the initiative says something for me, and that's. I'm really happy that you bring her on, because it's one of the things I want to do is bring much more diversity in the conversations. I've said it before multiple times. We talked about Alistair, and of course, Alistair is a big name who started, or who is big part of the agile movement and at the start. And it's interesting, and these videos, of course, get a lot more hits than all the others. But for me, I'm even more interested in the people from the future, because it's me bringing the stories from the future for agile at the same time. And it's important that we don't forget the past, because yes, there is a lot of knowledge that people like Alistair and Johanna Rotman and Diana and Lisa and whoever else have. But at the same time, it's important that we look further. And what I see, and I didn't do well as well with the book, for example. I tried to make sure that I had as much women as men. I didn't succeed with it, but what was worse was that the book was way too European and US linked. It was just mainly a Western thing. I saw it while I was halfway into the book, but then it was already too late to change that much. And with this one, I really want to do all kind of diversity. This is also why there are some interviews here with couples, or couples with duos. So some of them are not even couples, but then I have a conversation with 3 people, because that gives again another kind of diversity. And the one thing that I'm now failing on, and you're not helping with that, is that I'm actually have too many people who written a book on this podcast. I have so in that sense, it's not good for me that you've written a book, because now that number is again higher. That's the one thing, because of course when people bring in people, they this is an interesting person because he or she written a book, and it's kind of logical. But I hope to also invite all the other people that didn't write a book yet and that might still write a book in the next couple of years. And so bringing a person that talks about agile in color is important as well. Okay, you had still some other names. Is there still someone that you want to talk about the other names, or you feel that this is the most important?
I will say right now, Calidra is like, because I don't want to lose the focus talking about other people because of what you just said right now.
Okay, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. And yeah, I think we already mentioned a few other people during our conversation, so that's
Mhm.
fine as well. So I'll link these people into the show notes as well, because I think it's important to mention some of these people in the conversations. It's been a wonderful time. If people would like to connect you and know more about you, what could be a good place for people to connect with you?
They can go to any of my social media is with my name. That is like here in the video, they can see how we
And
share
and I
that.
put in the LinkedIn because I think that's one of the places where people can find you.
Yeah.
That's indeed a good place that for socials. Okay,
And in my website, that is my name, my last name,
that's this one, right?
that one.
That was.
Exactly. RocioBriceno.com.
And there you can find lots of the interesting things. Also, the manifesto that you wrote together with Alistair is
That's
linked in your book, on your website. You talk about it as well, I think. So
yes.
I want to really thank you for your time because it's been a very fun conversation. We had some technical glitches getting it started. We had some technical glitches in the middle, but I feel really with lots of energy to keep doing it. So it's been a wonderful conversation. Yeah, Alistair was completely right that I would enjoy this conversation. I did very much. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you everybody that is watching this video for being here. So during this time, and like, let's keep doing agile.
Exactly, and let's keep changing the world like you're doing because it's wonderful and it's really inspiring. I hope it actually, well, if people feel inspired by the work, they can of course leave some things in the comments and talk about it. I'll definitely make sure that you hear about it. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Mwah.
Bye bye.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.